Today we're going to talk about pointing joints in brick walls. So there's a few things I want to talk about specifically in relationship to bricklayers doing pointing versus pointers doing pointing. We do a lot of pointing. We have guys that are very skilled at it. We also have a lot of bricklayers that are very skilled bricklayers that work for us. And when they get on a pointing job, it's a different animal. So this is what we're going to talk about. One thing is you don't want to be pointing with your trowel. It's one thing to touch up a joint, maybe a corner pull hole on a new masonry job, but to sit there with a trowel and do this business is going to take way too long. And you put it on and then you go like this. That's not the way we're going to be pointing, production pointing. Production pointing, you need to be right up on the wall. If you're going to use your trowel for a minute, or maybe to get to a tough spot, then you want to hold your trowel upside down like this so that you can work it kind of like a hawk board. A hawk board is the preferred method, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. So if you have to use the trowel, that's how you do it. This is a hawk board. This is the tool to use when you're pointing joints. You're going to take your hawk, you're going to hold your mortar on it, a heavy trowel, maybe a little more, and you're going to hold it up against the joint like this. The mortar for pointing should be stiffer than when you're laying. Should be, not hard, but, it should still be pliable, but not breaking apart, but stiffer than brick mortar. You don't want it oozing, and you want to be able to get good compaction, and you don't want to smear up the brickwork. So you're going to make it a little bit stiffer. And then I typically like to see people pack their bed joints in first and then come back and hit the head joints. One thing you should do, everyone should have multiple size slickers right in their hand, right in their pocket. There's a wide range of sizes. You probably need like 2 sizes. Oftentimes, 2 sizes right there will do the job, but you rarely need more than 2. A lot of these old buildings, the mortar joints fluctuate. You want the slicker to be as close to the size of the joint as possible because you don't want mortar oozing out on the top edge or the bottom edge, creating a crease. And you don't want it to be so much bigger than the joint that you're smearing mortar on the face of the brick. This here is a wider joint. I'm increasing the size of my slicker to do this portion right here. And I don't go hunting for my slicker because I have the 2 or 3 I need in my hand, in my pocket, right with me the whole time I'm pointing a piece of wall. You want to keep your hawk as close to the wall as possible when you're working. Now the head joints are tighter, so right here's my smaller slicker. See how I got it pressed in nice about the width of the joint. This will cut right off. What you're going to want to do is pack everything in, make it flush, and then before you brush it down, cut your excess off. You can give everything a once over before you do it as well. You're going to want to save your excess as you go. Cut and save it. We don't want to use bags like we would on a stone wall. There are certain applications where a grout bag comes in handy. You can't make money with a grout bag pointing in a wall. It's not physically possible. Every time you stop to fill your bag, and then you have the motion of bagging, and then you have to go back over and finish the joints. Also, in order to get it to flow through the bag, you have to make the mortar. This causes smearing, and it causes a delay time in you being able to finish the joints. So now you're stopping early to let it set up so you can finish it. Furthermore, this is a painted wall in the training room. It's not sucking the moisture out. Normally, you're going to mist the wall before you start because you can't have the mortar setting up quickly, and you're already using a slightly stiff mortar. On hot summer days, you're going to have to mist it throughout the day, sometimes even soak burlap and hang it over your work at the end of the day to keep it from taking a flash set, curing too quickly. You really want to just make the mortar live in this kind of hydration state as long as possible. So yeah, we're using a stiffer mortar for the application, but we want to elongate the time that it stays at that state. The other thing to remember is you only have a 1/2 inch depth of mortar. So this mass of masonry will suck what moisture is out of that 1/2 inch of mortar very quickly, much quicker than a full bed depth. If you lay a brick, that mortar is under that brick is going to maintain its moisture longer than just pointing the face of the joint. This training mortar doesn't have cement. This wall is painted, it's not pulling the moisture, but on your job and in real life, you want this to be a little tighter before you finish it. This is a point where a lot of guys will now strike it with a regular concave jointer, and that's not necessary. Oftentimes, if we're pointing a whole house or a whole building, then a flat iron produces a perfectly fine finish. Also, sometimes when we're matching the old stuff, it is flat. Furthermore, if you're matching or you're just doing an area, then whatever the finish is, you have to match it. If it's a rake, if it is a concave joiner, if it's a beaded joint, which is a whole nother video. But you always gotta match and look good with your surrounding wall. Same goes with color. Always test your color before you point the whole wall. Do a sample area, make sure your color matches right on. Get approval from the customer before you proceed with the colored mortar. So at this point, we're almost ready to tool. It's still a little bit soft. I'm probably gonna go before it's dry and demonstrate. A lot of times what you're gonna do is you're just gonna brush the wall off after you put a smooth finish on it. And that will get you the desired look. And like I was mentioning earlier, this is a little too wet and I'm actually removing too much of it. So it's kind of a bad example in here, but you got the idea. You slick it, pack it full, keep it flat, and then brush it down.